They call them barbarians, but these wild men of the southern jungles will unite to take on the Han Empire in the latest DLC for Total War Three Kingdoms. The Nan Man are here, and to talk about it today, I'm joined with the two lead developers on the DLC. This is where you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Attila, do you want to go first?
I'm Attila Mohácsi. I'm a project design director on Three Kingdoms DLC.
Hi, I'm Simon Mann. I'm a senior designer on Three Kingdoms DLC.
So, I guess the
Simon,
first
you're
question...
design lead. Come on, that's how you go into the credits as well.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, good.
This sounds so much better.
Oh, in that case, I'll go again. Hi, my name's Simon Mann. I'm design lead on Three Kingdoms DLC. Just been promoted. It's exciting.
For people that don't know anything about the Furious Wild, what is this DLC about?
The Furious Wilds really is the first big expansion that we're doing for Three Kingdoms. Now, compared to our previous DLCs, an expansion represents not just new gameplay opportunities, but also a geographic or physical expansion to the map or the cultures within it. In this instance, we're bringing you the Nan Man culture, or the Southern Barbarians, as they were called by the Hun. One thing we really wanted to do was actually bring in a brand new cultural group, something to add a little bit of kind of spice and flavor to the existing rosters that we have. And we think the Nan Man are a really strong representation of that.
Why did you guys choose these 4 legendary generals to be the playable ones in this game?
One thing we always have to consider with anything we do is that we're taking a very well-known and popular piece of history and literature, right? And that's something that's core to this. But one of the things we have to do, is we have to kind of meet the expectations of what people want. Now, Meng Huo, who's the leader of the Nan Man peoples, ostensibly at that point, he's someone we had to do, right? Because if you don't put him in, then you haven't really explored the Nan Man peoples. Alongside that, Lady Zhu Rong, she's a really cool character. I'm really glad we got to put her in. She becomes Meng Huo's wife eventually, but in our narrative, she's actually her own independent leader who can kind of paint China her color if she wishes to. Then we wanted to do King Shamoke. He was an interesting one. He's quite prominent in the novels. He fights for Liu Bei for a short while, but his interesting thing is that he's kind of on this fence between being both a Han and a Nan Man. And when we saw that was an option for us, it became a really interesting idea of how we can mechanize that, how we can turn that into gameplay mechanics. And then lastly was King Mulu. I think Mulu was a kind of obvious one, A, because he's a major character, but B, also because of his affinity with animals. Quite often we called him like the druid or the shaman of the Nan Man internally while we were working with it. And with the direction of the DLC going towards this kind of wild, natural kind of theme, as it were, he really fit well into that.
So, with all these guys in this game, though, they're such big personalities. Do you have a personal favorite, the one you put that extra little bit of attention in? You have a favorite. Everyone has a favorite kid.
Clearly my favorite is Mulu. It's kind of a very unique take on a historical game, like how you can play as a faction and what type of units you can feel, and it just changes the whole mood of how do you think about, my left flank is made out of elephant, my right flank is made out of tiger. It's a tough many historical games that you can do.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the strong themes of this DLC is that we're setting it around the 190s, so they're available in the 190 and the 194 campaigns. And one of the biggest themes is about uniting the tribes. So at the very start of the game, there are 19 various Nan Man factions, all basically vying to become the one, like the one true king almost. It's a bit of a Highlander situation, if you will. And for me, I think Meng Huo really fulfills that brief of the Uniter, and we put a lot of love into him with regards to his narrative, especially with regards to his relationship with Zhu Rong. Mechanically, I think he's an interesting sell. Meng Huo, we kept him really simple because we wanted a faction that just let you experience and appreciate the kind of mechanics that we've brought in for the Nan Man DLC, and for example the fealty system. So as you're conquering the various tribes, you actually gain their fealties, which unlock not just ministerial positions and bonuses for your faction, but they also give you access to brand new units. That's how you flesh out your unit roster. So if King Mulu, for example, Attila's favorite, is attacking you with elephants, if you go and you conquer him or even ally with him, you can gain access to his units. You can assimilate his kind of almost mechanics into yourself to actually make your faction stronger.
The fealty system is by far probably one of my favorite additions in this DLC, by the way. I love that as you conquer a tribe, you also get specific bonuses from that tribe. As someone who I love confederating people, and so it's really that kind of extra icing on the cake for me. It's a really nice addition. But are you also able to, like, if you defeat Mulu, to get access to his unique units as well?
Yeah, so that's the idea. Is actually as you're going through, you're almost, the idea is that the Nan Man can't compete with the Han, right? You know, at a base level, the Imperial army will crush the Nan Man if they can't unite. But by uniting, you actually become not just on a par with the Han, but at the very late levels, you actually gain some small advantages. With, I say small, it's an elephant, they're quite large, but you gain some advantages over the Han as you play through. And we really wanted to create that narrative of growth, and that's where the fealties come in. They're really the mechanical glue that ties that all together. Of, you start weak, you need to unite the tribes to get strong enough to then not just look internally, but to actually look externally from yourself as well.
So what inspired the visual identity of the Nan Man culture for you guys?
So I would say it goes back to the very, very first pillar we had, that you would like to have a tribal culture. They're very strong, very powerful. When you look at them, you know, like, they are coming for you. And also, like, when we started to look at, like, for example, the new technology tree for them, the reform tree is like something very different compared to the Han. It's very elaborate, delicate things that you are looking at, but it's something very crude, but still nice. For the characters, for example, like, again, anything you find him is pretty much obtainable within that hemisphere. You could just go out to the jungle, hunt, and get everything that's on him. So they're literally living off from nature itself. And it's a nice symbiosis as well. That
I've been reading up on Zhuge Liang's Southern Campaign, and one of the things that they talk about are very specific descriptions of the Nan Man, especially with Meng Huo, with the, like, they describe, like, using red paint and even him riding, like, a red ox at one point. And I thought that was really interesting to see it reflected in his beard and stuff in the actual design of the character you guys made.
And Meng Huo, you'll see as well, he's got little accoutrements that are mentioned in the book, like the gold lion belt and things like that. These are all things that are present within that game. So I'm hoping people who know it will actually see some of the nods that we've done.
What tiny detail did you include in this DLC that nobody will ever notice but you made sure to put it in there anyway?
Well, I managed to sneak in. They let me do some writing this time around. And I managed to sneak in some quite humorous descriptions onto various ancillaries in the game. So I was quite happy to be able to get those in.
is literally, for me, the first time you open the reforms and you click on it and you research the elephant taming. And the elephant roaring in that moment, it just sets the mood so perfectly for me for the entire DLC that I think it's just perfect in itself. It's a very small, nice touch. I hope people don't notice it.
You were talking about the icon for the elephant and stuff on the tech tree. It's right there at the top, and I was so excited to find that button, by the way. The first time you play, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I can get an elephant immediately? Okay, I guess I'll just click that elephant button. Mr. Mann, do you need to take a break? That's fine if you need to, bud.
Somebody was at the door. I had to just go get it. It was a delivery, apparently.
Okay,
sorry.
You're fine. I just want to make sure. If you guys need a pause, just give me the timeout.
No, I prepared before we started.
So how did the novel, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, inspire some of your game design and game choices?
One of the best things that we can find, like, especially as most of us are very, how to say it, excited about the story itself, but like finding all these small little details that, like, I wasn't aware, like, when I was reading just the novel itself. They give, like, huge inspiration of how we can make those characters really stand out.
When it comes to the peculiarities of each of our characters, I think very much we've kind of pulled that from the novel, because the Romance of the Three Kingdoms novel is all about bringing you these amazing larger-than-life characters who kind of you want to meet or have round at a dinner party at some point, apart from the evil ones. But also we were able to take quite a lot with regards to cultural history as well at the same time. So that allowed us to do our more general things, like Attila was talking about earlier, with the art direction and things like that. Like, we were able to use the history to actually add to the kind of fabric of the feel of the DLC, and that was a really important thing for us.
There is a lovely event that you can go through, how Lady Zhurong and Meng Huo's marriage actually happens in the game. They can turn the tide quite heavily in your favor or against you if you're playing against them. And that inspiration is coming from the novel and history itself.
I was playing part of the Meng Huo campaign to kind of prepare for the interview, and it's an extensive courtship. I mean, you have to make some sacrifices if you want to impress that lady.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's, in my opinion, probably slightly more powerful than you as well, so you do have to put in a bit of work.
Do you have a personal favorite new unit added with this DLC?
My personal new favourite unit, because I think I've already sort of planted my flag firmly in Meng Huo's camp, is he gets a unit called the Nanshong Elephants. They are drummers, and essentially you have 3 drum beats available, and depending on the drum beat, it applies different effects to the units around it. When I was playing as Meng Huo, I found it really interesting to have this essentially powerful war beast, which I was actually using as a support unit and only charging in a bit like a kind of Hobilar at the end to actually kind of finish off enemy units or units that are about to break. But their bonuses to me just felt really good, and they were kind of marching around the battlefield, trumpeting away quite happily. And yeah, I find them actually really, really fun to play with.
For me, I would say I would cheat a bit, and I would say like it's a combination of 2. Like what I really love to do in the game is using the tigers to a little bit unsettle the enemy line, and in the meantime, like from the side or the rear, charging with the war elephants, because like that with their mighty knockbacks, oh god, that's a sight to behold, the havoc they are wrecking. It's brilliant. It's really like when you look at it, it's like, it was wonderful. And because I like to break the rules, I would even put a 3rd one there, though. Sorry about it. But the juggernauts that are coming in are flamethrowers that are like a homage to Zhuge Liang Southern's campaign. Like, when you line them up properly, and yeah, they can just destroy whole units if you use them perfectly. Again, one thing that's coming from the book is the rattan armor. Again, like, so how we represented it in the game, they're very strong if you use conventional weapons against them, but they're extremely vulnerable to fire. So if you use the flamethrowers, like the juggernauts against them, well, the pride of the Nanman is going down really, really quickly in flames.
So I imagine the big challenge for you guys has been finishing off and developing this DLC from home. Can you guys talk about some of the problems you may have encountered trying to get this out to us?
Keyboard, that was a challenge. I had to buy a rather expensive keyboard from Taiwan in order to replace it properly. That was a biggie for me. I mean, I think the biggest challenge that me personally I feel is not having anyone there with me. I think games is a really collaborative experience, and one of the reasons I love making games is I get to work with other passionate people who equally want to make games together as a group. And I think even though you've got things like Zoom and Teams and Discord and things, I don't think it really makes up for that ability to go over to someone's desk and ask a question, or quickly pull a few people into a meeting room to have a chat about something, or just the general there's a kind of general ambience or a background buzz you get working at a game dev studio, where you can hear all these conversations going on around you, and it's quite inspiring because sometimes you'll hear things that are of interest and stuff like that. And I think for me that's the biggest thing that I've missed. CEA's been absolutely great in supporting us as we go through. Like, we had a heat wave last week, and they gave us all money to buy home fans so that we could get a big... We don't have air conditioning over here, you see, so we had to get little fans and stuff. But the company's been really, really good to help. I bought my chair. But yeah, everything's been really nice. They've been really supportive of us, so it's not been the same, of course, but I think at the same time, you know, we found a new way of working and a new normal that we can go with.
I'd say for myself, I agree with Simon that the biggest difficulty is just not having the passionate people around. Ourselves, we were kind of joking about it, and now it turned out to be like it's a very key element of working at sea, that you probably have the most passionate and best people to work with. It really just makes you very happy every day just to go to the office. Again, like as Simon said, like the company was still like stellar and accommodating with everything that they could have done to help us. Like, I'm getting a new chair as well because it makes it easier, but still, like, I think it's just that very personal touch that really doesn't come through with like having a chat with someone on Teams, Zoom, or anything. Just being there physically, and like I look at people and it's like, oh, there is something in your mind, I can tell it right away. And then we have a very nice emergent discussion about things. Like, that's the one thing that I think I miss the most.
Well, hopefully this stuff will end pretty quickly and you guys can get back to doing what you love, because we definitely enjoy playing it. Now, I was told that you guys wanted me to ask my community for questions that they may have for you. Is this correct?
Josh?
Yes, it is.
I warned Josh that my community is the salt of the earth. Question number 1, and the top most voted question. Gentlemen, if you're ready. Where do babies come from?
They're spawned into character pools in the Han faction. There is I think it's a 20% chance that a man and wife who are married will have an opportunity to spawn a child. But that, of course, lowers depending on the number of children. So every additional child they have, that actually lowers that value by 30%.
I'm sorry, that was a beautiful answer. That was exactly what I was hoping you'd go with. So I'm like, these are professionals. I think I can throw that one out there. I'm going to see if there's actually a really good, useful question in there. I threw it up last night, but that was the one that really jumped out at me because it was just the silliest damn thing I think I've ever seen.
Brilliant.
So the general question across all my community, though, was, is there going to be more DLC? Can we expect further support of Three Kingdoms at this level?
Definitely, we are planning lots of things for the Three Kingdoms. Like, we are really like the idea of like having this chapter packs that are expanding our timeline and the expansions that are expanding the universe we are playing in, like as we did with Manman. Yes, I can confirm the plans for future ones.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things is we've got quite a strong team now working on 3K DLCs, and quite a tight-knit team as well. And I think, yeah, as we continue to make them, I mean, we've still got to finish this one, right? We're still doing the last bells and whistles on top of this. But yeah, I think, you know, there's more to come, as Attila says, with more DLCs and things. So we'll move on to hopefully those in the near future. But were you saying you've been playing Menquo then?
Yeah, it's been really fun to play through. So when you guys were talking about the design, I was surprised even at the most basic level, like the background paper is like a different, rougher paper. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a heck of a subtle detail, and I was like, very nicely done right there.
You should have seen it when it first came in. It was bright yellow. I mean, like bright banana yellow. And we literally went to the UI team and went, it needs to not be quite that yellow, please. Like, it's cool that it's different, but
I think, Simon, you brought it up like somewhere through like halfway through our production that like, hey, it would be nice to do something a bit more culturally specific UI, and then we just had a chat with our lead UI artist, Gennady, and we started bouncing ideas about like what we could do.
It's one of those subtle things, but, you know, having a different UI so that every time you look down, it just feels intrinsically different when you play them. So it definitely shines through. But even all the tribal fealty designs, it's such a cool feel. Like, you know, it's very distinct. It feels different from the Han. You know, there's all those little cool icons that look individual as well, but also recognizable.
Yeah. How did you find the reforms tree? Did you enjoy the kind of decisions and the missions and things? Do you think it added quite
It took me a minute to figure it out because I would hover over the mouse, and whoever decided that they should disappear, that was very helpful to figure out you're making a solid decision right there. It actually reminded me a lot of the reforms tree from Fall of the Samurai. If you guys played Shogun 2 back in the day.
Yeah, of course.
There's a very similar kind of thought process in my mind of like, are you going to reform or are you going one way or the other? So I liked it as a concept. I didn't get far enough down. I was doing the missions to unlock the stuff, but I liked that as well, that, you know, you can only go so far before you have to obviously do something further.
I think we got a really good opportunity to add lots of cool new things and actually try out a few experiments. And I think, thankfully, touch wood, those experiments have gone quite well, actually. Yeah, like you say, changes to the reforms, skill trees, like we did new building trees for the Nan Man, like all these different things. They seem to have worked nicely. And like other things we don't talk about too much, like the jungle mechanics, like the effects that you get. Yeah, like the effects you get for basically, if you're a Han invading the jungle, you get a load of penalties and negatives with regards especially to things like your movement speeds and your combat ability and your fatigue state. Whereas as the Nan Man, of course, this is your home turf.
Yeah.
So you kind of actually get much more bonuses from it. So the Nan Man at home, basically never play them away. That's the important thing.
So you actually mentioned something a second ago. It made me want to ask a question. Is there any mechanic that you were developing? You're like, yeah, this is cool, but it was just like so crazy you could not possibly fit it in there. It's like you just couldn't quite hammer that square into a round shaped hole.
I'm not allowed to say my crazy ideas anymore. People tell me off.
You can hear.
I mean, the DLC isn't... It's weird. It's quite like how it was originally envisaged, but it's also completely different to how it was originally envisaged. But what we did do is there was a lot of moving these feature blocks around to get them in the right order, if you see what I mean, to get them kind of feeling correct.
Yeah, for example, at the beginning, I think it was before you united, the tribes couldn't even use the reforms at all. So that's one thing we decided not to do. but you have to reshuffle a little bit the things, and that's why like ended up near the other way around, that like you have to do certain fealties to unlock the reforms.
Yeah, I imagine shuffling around the reforms and the fealty definitely changes the pacing of how the campaign works and how quickly you're progressing through it and the feeling of success. So I could see how just something like moving when that gets accessed drastically changes the play of the game.
Yeah, exactly. That was a lot of what it was. It was a lot of us playing with how that pacing felt of the game, and I think it's a good sign that I think we managed to do a lot of playtesting for this one and a lot of playthroughs, that we really got that nice feel for how this DLC paces itself and how it goes.
Yesterday, the game was announced, and people across the board have been very excited and very positively receiving Nan Man. Hopefully you guys have been receiving some accolades on your end too, and it's kind of nice to actually see it out in the wild and people being excited to play your work.
Yeah, the reaction has been great, and that's really helped buoy us up as well. You know, we work hard on these things, and like with any game, you never really know how people are gonna receive it until it's actually there in their hands, or in this case that they're seeing it. So yeah, for us it's really a really positive thing that everyone seems to be liking it so far.
Also, one thing that was very positive to see is that when people reacted to like all the variety that we brought into the game, it was received very well. For example, the tigers, the elephants, like all the exotic units that came in. We really hope that this will also spice up a little bit the game for everyone who is getting it, and it's not just as playing as the Nan Man, but also if you play against them, like you will have new unique enemies to overcome and fight against.
Alright guys, that's basically all I have. Thank you guys so much for taking some time out to speak with me. You guys really have crafted something amazing, and that's not even counting the fact that you did part of it from home, which makes it even more exceptional. But I think people are going to have a really great time with it when they play it and get their hands on it.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to
Thank you so much.
The Furious Wild will release on September 3rd as a DLC for Total War 3 Kingdoms. It'll be available for PC through Steam, and you can find a link to it in the description below. And a special thank you to the developers of Creative Assembly for sitting down and chatting with me, and as always, thank you for watching.